basically will plan to tell two short stories, maybe three if time permits, and then set the context and connect these three short stories. The first short story is from the late 1990s when me and my team were in the UK, and we were trying to make a history lesson very interesting. Uh, the lesson which many of us would have studied in history in India as well, even though this was in the UK context, was about the end of World War One and the peace treaty that happened at the palace, the amazing Palace of Versailles in Paris, where the warring countries, Germany and the rest, signed the peace treaty to end World War One. World War One is one of the key history subjects that all of us study as students. We study in India, at least when I went to school, we would study world wars as part of our history lessons. And it is done world over as well, because it was an important event where every country in the world was involved, directly or indirectly. And we were trying to bring in a co-curricular angle to what is otherwise in the curriculum framework. Every country has a national curriculum framework, even we do have, and it does keep changing every now and then. But history is history. It's full of facts, and facts don't go away. But then you need a context for everything. When you read history and when you read about World War One and the end of World War One in the UK, when you are in the school, or in Germany, when you are in school, the textbooks will align with the national curriculum framework. And the context, the tone, the tenor will always have a bias of where it is coming from and in which country you're studying. We had this challenge of trying to build a co-curricular extension to what was there in the curriculum, which was about the Treaty of Versailles. How do you treat such an educational concept, which is a must read? There are a lot of lessons we can derive from the world wars that have been fought, even in today's life and in today's geopolitical alignments in the world, to make sure that World War III may hopefully not happen. And it was about education and treating education from a co-curricular angle. And what we did was, at that point in time, this was late 90s, early 2000s, education technology was already there, but not as sophisticated as it is today. So we did an experiment which was enormously successful, which was, we had about 250 schools in the UK participating in this event, which I will describe just now. And we had a few schools in Mysore also participating in this event. We had an expert on World War One who moderated this event, and this is how this event was structured. We used role play, and we used the concept of children getting together from different schools, from different parts of the world, to renegotiate the Treaty of Versailles. There were different countries being represented by heads of states and important dignitaries. Now here was a history lesson, and we got children to reenact the treaty. Imagine that you were representing your nation, you had your point of view. There were children from another school in Mysore who would probably have an Indian point of view, children from school in Germany who would have a German point of view, and the way in which they read, the context was always in the way in which history lessons about Treaty of Versailles were written. And you get them to renegotiate the treaty, and we got them to renegotiate the treaty online. So they didn't have to come and meet in one place. Fortunately, in Mysore at that point in time, we had the Software Technology Parks of India, which could provide us the requisite internet bandwidth. And at that point in time, getting internet bandwidth into schools in European countries and other countries wasn't a big problem. So you could get all of them, create those treaty negotiation rooms, and actually role play the role, take it seriously and renegotiate, and come up with whatever outcomes could align with the actual outcomes of the Treaty of Versailles. Versailles is spelled as Versailles, even though we tend to pronounce it as Versailles. So here was a model which was co-curricular. It did not go away from the curriculum, because education curriculum always aligns to a framework. Your teaching plans, lesson plans, and whatever happens inside classrooms do align with the framework, curriculum framework. You don't want to leave the curriculum framework and jump out of those boundaries a whole lot. At the same time, you want to connect with the core curriculum, but then help children, in this particular case, bring in their own points of view, establish different contexts, so that the learning about a very important event in history is enriching, and it will always leave a deep imprint in their minds even when they grow. It's not just about learning history, it's about so many things. When they role play and when they participate in these organizations, it's cross-cultural, it's across geographies, it's across languages, and the real benefits is actually post this event. Even we had not figured that out. So the event went well, that was all fine. But one thing we realized is even post this event, children from different schools in different countries kept in touch with each other. They liked to collaborate. So today's education world is a fabric which is very interwoven. You cannot draw thick lines and make education systems into silos, irrespective of what country you belong to, what curriculum framework you are aligning with. And here was a great example, late 1999, where an event which used technology, but not a whole lot of technology like we would probably today, but managed to deliver a great impact as far as education is concerned. I can tell more about it, but I know I'm running out of time. So let me jump to story number 2. We all hear of ecological disasters that keep happening. We abuse nature and we have to pay for it. One of the common things we come across is oil spills, right? So even the last year, we had 2 or 3 occasions where oil tankers hit a sandbar or hit another tanker, and there are tons of oil, crude oil, that spills into the ocean. And it destroys ocean life. It could destroy certain important species which are there in the ocean life. It destroys flora and fauna. And one has to deal with it, and somebody has to pay for it. Again, going back to what we did was, at that point in time, this is a little later, Flash was quite popular, Adobe Flash, and we used that to create a story, an animation, where you could see in 2D, you build a story where you see a tanker coming in, hits a sandbar, oil spill happens, and then all the impacts of oil spill are shown. But the difference was, as a user, you could pick a role that you can play in this environment from a learning perspective. You could pick to play the role of a ship's captain. You could play the role of a WWF, which is the World Wildlife Fund, a Greenpeace movement, press representative, because all of them converge into a setting of a disaster of this kind. And it is immersive in nature because you can log in, take on that role, and actually perform actions which you would otherwise perform in real life if you were in the disaster scene. Doing that, you get to interact with different people individuals playing different roles, and you get to interact with them, and again enriching your knowledge. You could ask questions, etc., etc. So the idea is use technology, use graphics, tell a story, make it really interesting, create an immersive learning environment. I'm talking about early 2000s. Today, to create an immersive learning environment is not as difficult as it was during those times. And post that, we said we will create a platform where they could interact with a real ship's captain who has been part of a real tanker disaster at some point in time or not. Interact with a real WWF representative, interact with a real press representative. So, post this fictional event, online event, immersive learning event, one could actually talk to people in the real world and learn from them. Now, again, is this not part of curriculum? It is. Even today, I see that in the schools, we talk about disasters. We've seen the last 1 year where probably in my lifetime at least, I have not seen as many disasters as what happened in 2020. Not only the pandemic, starting with the forest fires in Australia last January, to hurricanes, to volcano eruptions, to tanker collisions and oil spills, which people had to deal with. We've seen, unfortunately, we've seen a year of lots of disasters. It also happens that you read about these things in school, particularly when you're school students and higher secondary school students. So I want to, again, try and justify this as a as a co-curricular derivative of what otherwise actually is in the curriculum, actually is in the lesson, actually should be discussed in a classroom, a real classroom setting. But go out of, don't jump out entirely of the framework, but be connected with real world situations. Today's classrooms, whether they are at a school level or at a higher education level, have to be different. There is technology that is available as a tool to empower the teaching learning processes, particularly the teachers, and at the same time, not everything can be scripted. Education is most effective and learning is most effective when you are able to connect what you're learning in your textbooks, in your classrooms, and as part of your curriculum framework. And you're able to connect that with real world events. Something that's happening today. If you read something in the newspaper today, if you watch something on television today, and if you're able to establish a semantic connection between what happens in your school or in your college, could be even an engineering college, with what's happening out there, I think you learn that much more. And I also think it makes each one of us better and more responsible world citizens. The third short story is I'm going to move a few decades. I'm an entrepreneur, that's my life, that's my profession, that's my, in a way, that's also my curriculum. My curriculum is to practice good entrepreneurship. And at the same time, if I have to talk about what is co-curricular in my life, it is to be, apart from being a good entrepreneur, be a good citizen. One thing I've learned, which I would like to believe is co-curricular to what I do for my livelihood, which is entrepreneurship, particularly in the education technology area, is equanimity. At my age, I'm 58 years old. and being an entrepreneur, trying to build a business, you obviously want to win customers, win businesses, create profitable businesses, create more entrepreneurs who make sense to the world, who can make a social impact, etc., etc. While doing that, there is something which I have personally learned, which I would believe is co-curricular at an entrepreneurship level, which is be able to take wins and losses with equanimity. You can't win everything all the time. You can't lose everything all the time. Don't get too excited by wins. Don't get too frustrated or disappointed with losses. Take them both with equanimity. So I started with what I got exposed to in 1999 to later in 2000 and to my own experience today, even though it's not so much about core education. Entrepreneurship is increasingly getting into the curriculum. I know that school curriculum today incorporates subjects. I find it very difficult to call entrepreneurship a subject because I believe entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's the spirit of an individual or of a community and a team. You know, it's getting into the mainstream. Business studies is getting into the mainstream, which is very encouraging to see. And I hope that events like this today and in a place like Mysore and the change that we are seeing in education and the transformation that we are seeing in education will help us produce more and more entrepreneurs, more and more TEDx events in Mysore. Great appreciation to the entire team who have worked for success of this event. I've enjoyed being part of it. Thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.